I started in 1972. I was driving past Shearwater, and I noticed some cars there in the parking lot, and I drove in and asked them what they were doing, and they said they were having the national slalom. I asked them if I could enter, and they said yes. You just had to pay an entry fee and take all the objects out of your car that would fly around, and I entered the event and enjoyed myself.
I think that maybe it's a lot of people's introduction to solo events, because you can be driving just along a deserted parking lot on a Sunday afternoon and see a bunch of crazies out there going around plastic pylons or construction cones in the parking lot and wonder what they're up to. So I imagine quite a few people stumble onto it that way.
Oh, yes, they do.
You've done fairly well in your past few years with solo events. I understand you've won quite a few championships. We'll get into that a little later on. And, of course, in the club as well, you managed to clean up quite often.
Well, a few times,
as often
yes.
as possible. Maybe we should explain what solo events is. Solo events, I suppose, maybe a little misleading, but it's a pretty simple term. It means one vehicle on the course at a time, hence the solo.
Yes.
And it's usually a low-speed event.
It is usually using maybe first and second gear of your vehicle. And it reminds you of truck rodeos where they try their skill at driving their vehicles through a pylon-studded course.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we do the same thing, except we put a timer on it and see how fast we can do the same thing without hitting a pylon. And we have different classes for different types of vehicles, which makes the competition a little more equal.
Yes, to break them down, because you're not all going to arrive in the same
Yes,
time.
we don't all run in one class and don't have large cars against small cars, or very agile, sporty type cars against domestic sedans.
Mm-hmm. And then we try to break it down even finer by maybe applying points for modifications,
yes,
so that you're not bringing a stock vehicle in and expecting to run against almost a fully modified or a race-prepared car.
That's right.
And maybe we can go into that a little later, too, or make it a little fairer system, so even with the small numbers that we sometimes have at events down here, we
yes,
make it as fair as possible.
For the more keen fellows who like to add things to their vehicles, we tend to put limitations to what they can do to their vehicles and still stay in the same class.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the truck rodeos. They are actually still driving events, and that's what these slaloms
yes,
are, basically. How quickly you can maneuver safely around the course, because to hit a pylon means an addition of 3 seconds to your time, which can be absolutely catastrophic.
That's correct.
if you're tying for first place.
Yes. I tend to believe that doing slaloms, you tend to learn how to handle your car a lot better, to know your car, to know what it'll do in an emergency type situation.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you can enjoy yourself because you're the only one out there all by yourself.
Yes, safe, controlled circumstances, and yet you do have a chance to find out what the car could be like at the limit instead of finding out an emergency situation on the road.
Correct.
And you're not always pushing your car either. People think of motorsport events and wonder if a family sedan can stand up to the rigors of the motorsport, but this is really one of the most entertaining and cheapest forms of motorsport you can get involved with.
It is.
And I think a lot of racing people come from the grassroots level of...
a lot of them start that way. They start off in solo events, and then they gradually move up to a race school or and racing.
Mm-hmm. Fun. They like the competition of the thing.
Yes, if they
And
do.
you're competing with yourself, too. When
That's
you're
right.
out there, even though it's just you in the car, you know that there are times to better your own plus the competitors in your class. So you're trying to do that course as quickly and smoothly as possible, because smooth is fast. And
That's correct.
yeah, it
Yes,
teaches you what to
If
do.
you are very smooth, you can be very quick.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes hard to keep your foot off the gas. It's a matter of
Yes.
discipline, too. I think we have a film clip pretty shortly about the camera driving around in Gary Mark's RX-7 at the last regional slalom we had at Shearwater. And it gives you an idea. I can tell Gary, of course, the RX-7 is very... Oh, here it is now. You'll be able to see when the camera is going around in the car that the RX-7 is very flat and very controllable. And, of course, Gary's taking it easy for the first little bit. But it'll give you a bit of a bird's-eye view of what the course looks like from the car. People may look at the course and think it's a little Mickey Mouse just driving around those pylons. But when you're out there and you're trying to remember that you go right around this stripe pylon and everything else, it's a matter of memory as well as going as quickly as possible in some cases. I guess we're pulling up to the start-finish line here. Now, this is electronic timer, so you don't get the 3, 2, 1, go. When the timer is set up, you can leave and break the beam, and that starts the timer.
You ready? Yeah.
And we're off. Now, you may notice that some of these pylons are solid colors on the left and stripes on the right. That helps the driver navigate his way through the course. Gary does very well in his RX-7. I think he's taking it easy here for the sake of the camera person, but he's been doing very well in that vehicle. It's a brand new 1984 Mazda. So as you can tell, this sounds like first or second gear, I think, George. First gear, I guess.
It's second gear for Gary. He said that he was shifting and you could run second gear along here, and as you approach this tight corner, you shift it down to first gear, and run first gear along through the S there, and it's almost like a U-turn here, and another 180-degree turn here with a slight slalom to the other end of the parking lot.
As you can see by this, you're not over-revving at all. You're certainly not damaging the vehicle in any way. You go as quickly or slowly as you want, as competitive as you want to be, but you're not going to damage the car too much. A little over-anxious in the corner there. Now what usually happens is that you go around the same course 2 or 3 laps to complete your run, that all being timed. And at the end of this, you'll notice he goes into what we call a stop box. This is actually after he finishes, he goes to the stop-finish line. Here's the stop box here. This is a way of controlling the vehicles when they come off the track so that they're not wildly running through parking lots. We try to be as safe as possible.
Yes.
Because we have to keep in mind that if we abuse the parking lot privileges, we just won't get them back.
That's correct.
And with Sunday openings and flea markets, we're having a harder time finding parking lots now for sure.
Also, with a lot of the younger fellas, they tend to want to be a little squealy, and we tend to stop that very quickly.
Right,
the
we try
stop
to.
box helps prevent anyone from turkeying around the parking lot and making it bad for the rest of us.
That's true. And of course that incurs a penalty too if you do happen to stop.
That's correct. You're subject to anywhere from several second penalty to DNF on that particular run, which means all of us for naught.
Very strict rules that follow this. Now, we mentioned the classes earlier. Now, Gary's class, he is in an RX-7, of course. I don't believe there's too much in the way of preparation done to it. The car comes basically from the factory, very competitive.
Yes, it does. And Gary's car, the way we run our point structure this year, is automatically put in the improved class, which is one step up from stock, because he has accumulated more than 1 point, which is allowed in stock. You're only allowed 1 preparation point. And he accumulated these points because his car comes with a limited slip differential and also 60 series tires. This year we assess 1 preparation point for any tire that is wider than a 70 series profile, and also 1 point for limited slip differential, because all cars don't come with limited slips, and they also don't come with 60 series tires. And only to make it fair for all cars and drivers who don't particularly want to spend a lot of bucks adding these very expensive items to their vehicles, they have a better chance of being competitive without having them. They can compete in stock, or if they wish to buy the more expensive tires, the wider tires, they can be assessed the preparation points and step up class.
As an equalizing factor.
As an equalizing factor,
what
yes.
other cars would run in Gary's class? That being an RX-7, you wouldn't just have to have an RX-7 to be competing in.
No, an RX-7 is classified as a mid-engine vehicle. It's very agile, it's very quick. When the class structures are made up, all this is taken into consideration. Engine displacements, how much horsepower it has, the handling characteristics, the wheelbase. Cars that would be in Gary's class, for instance, would be Honda Civics. They are very agile on parking lot courses, and sounds like an unfair car to be competing against an RX-7, but in actual fact they are very competitive in these sort of skill driving contests. Other cars like a Mini Cooper S, for instance, they also will be in the same class. A Lotus, Porsches, 240Zs, 280Zs.
Cars with similar potential then, not just necessarily the same make and model.
Correct.
And of course, as we mentioned with the class of the preparation point structure now, 1 point, if you incur more than 1 point, you're out of your stock category and into, what is the next one?
Improved.
Improved. And how many points?
We're allowed up to 8 preparation points for improved. You get assessed points like, for instance, if you change your carburation. Say if you had a 2-barrel carburetor on your vehicle and you wanted to put a 4-barrel carburetor, you'd be assessed 2 preparation points because you were allowed 2-barrel and you're adding 2 more barrels, so you get 1 more point for each barrel.
Right.
The same with the smaller foreign cars, which tend to add Weber carburetors. If you add a Weber carburetor, which is an unauthorized modification, carburation-wise, you get assessed 2 preparation points for 1 carburetor. And if you add 2, then you get assessed 2 more preparation points, because even though it's 1 carburetor, it has 2 barrels. So you're assessed for each additional barrel.
Now the class after that, after improved, is modified?
It's prepared.
Prepared.
Prepared goes up to 24 preparation points. Now, most of the fellows who run prepared cars in other parts of the country are getting to really specialized solo event vehicles, and most of them usually trailer these vehicles to the sites because they're extremely fast. They have a lot of points to play with, and they can make quite a few modifications to their vehicles. And most of them find that if they're going to do all these modifications and changes to their vehicles, they're not very streetable. Some people do drive them on the streets, but the ride is very stiff. The response is very quick and very light as well. Usually they try to take as much weight out of the vehicle as possible. Yes, you'd be surprised how fast some of these small cars can be once you make a lot of modifications to them.
Just the right combination in some respects, too. If you do all of the changes, sometimes you're doing too much, but the rest with the right combination, you can get a very fast car out of it.
Some people change the springs, the sway bars, and even engines. They'll change the whole engine, for instance, and put in a more powerful engine.
Depending on the kind of event, too, which is something we didn't get into. The event that you saw just now was at Shearwater, which is a very small parking lot.
Yes.
And depending on the type of parking lot, we're restricted by its size. So, of course, you'll find that more of a skilled driving event as opposed to a high-speed event. Now, we do have some areas where we can stretch it out a little bit.
Yes. The odd time we give permission to use hangar space area in Greenwood, Nova Scotia, which is quite large, and we can have a driving contest which is rather high in speed, somewhere in the vicinity of 50 miles an hour, and you learn to control your car at a higher rate of speed.
Because, of course, the speed going into the corner will change how you do that corner drastically.
That's correct.
So it makes quite a difference to people who are used to a smaller event at Shearwater, for instance, to go to Greenwood. And the expanse there, it's really quite a high-speed event, quite a bit more fun, too, in some cases.
Yes, a lot of the fellows who have more powerful cars, they just love to go there and have fun and see how fast their car can get around the course.
We try to have a good mix, too, because, of course, you don't want to be able to just have someone win the championship because they happen to have a fast car. It is a skill driving event. And to have a good mix of low-speed and high-speed slaloms as well will definitely help that.
One of the cars which impressed me quite a bit this year, and I was really pleased to see Dave Smith. He brought out his Z28 Camaro, which is a lot of people consider a large vehicle, but the car is very well made. It's an ideal handling car, and he puts it through these slalom courses very quickly. As a matter of fact, he's one of the fastest drivers we have in the club.
Yes, he's very skillful at that, for sure. You also have a new car as well. You've been driving a Datsun 510 for many years.
Yes,
and you've gone now to a Honda?
Finally broke down and bought myself a Honda CRX. It's a nice little car. It appealed to me, and I thought it was time to buy a new vehicle. So
yes, take you a little while to get into it. Not as long as most people, but you're certainly learning to throw it around.
It is a front-wheel drive vehicle versus my rear-wheel drive Datsun, and it does have different handling characteristics, which I have to get used to bring myself up to the potential I used to be with the Datsun.
That should only take about half a year, yes. Now, we're talking about solo events. There are different classifications. We have a film clip coming up shortly with our national president, John Magill, in which he discusses national slaloms. But we have them on various levels. If you don't want to get too involved either from a money point of view or from a time point of view, you can just get involved with the club slaloms and the club series itself.
You can start off by joining a CASC-affiliated club. We have a couple in the Nova Scotia and about 3 or 4 in New Brunswick. And you just go to one of these club meetings and ask to become a member, and you start from there, and you can pick what field you want to be interested in, be it rallying or racing or solo events. And in solo events, when I first got involved, I didn't know very much at all, and I wanted to learn, so I found a book called How to Win at Slalom and Autocross by Jim Pagel. And I managed to ask the book room to send away for this book, and they managed to find it for me, and it's very informative. It was written about 10 years ago by a fellow who drives a Corvette, and he tells you about how to get around the course, what to do with your tires, what kind of tires to run, different class structures, the strategy involved. Inside here, there's a picture, an example of how to take different corners. I don't know if you can see this on camera.
The right way and the wrong way.
The right way and the wrong way, yes.
Which you can usually tell as you're going through the wrong way.
And as you can see, the dotted line is the wrong way, and the solid line is the correct way. If you happen to approach a corner the wrong way, you go slower, or you scrub off speed. If you do it correctly, you go quicker.
Something that could be even basically used in day-to-day driving. If
That's
you're
correct.
taking an on or off ramp a little too quickly, you could just as easily go off the road and do a lot of damage to the car. So if you do it right, the possibilities of that are lowered.
You notice it every day in the city. People that go around a corner and drive up on the curb because
Yes.
they didn't approach the corner correctly.
We're not talking about excess speed either. We're not the line speed record here at all, but
No,
just being safe and having a little fun at the same time.
That's right.
A few of the other books that you have here, when you get involved with a car club, a CASC affiliated car club such as ASCC is,
Yes.
you could get access to these books. Now this one you're holding up is the general competition
Now,
rules.
This is what we consider the Bible of motorsport and CSC. It's called the General Competition Rules. And if you are really interested in getting into it in a much greater depth, I suggest that you buy one of these books. It tells you what you can do and what you can't do, how to prepare or how to run an event.
The basic competition rules themselves.
That's
you know,
right.
Governing running any event.
How the club operates, what they should do when they're preparing for an event, such as people that they should acquire to organize the event, how to run the event, and stuff like that. We also have other books. This is a national solo book, which tells you all about solo events, from Solo 1, which is sprints, to Solo 2, which is slaloms. And this is the 1984 book, which covers all of this. Tells you what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, what you can do to your vehicles and still stay legal in a particular class.
The basic rules pertaining to solo events itself, that's
Yes.
right, on the national level.
On a national level, and some of that is also applies to the regional level and the club level. If you follow that, then you usually don't get yourself into trouble.
No, hopefully. And we're trying to keep ourselves in line more with national rules so that you're not running a club slalom and all of a sudden be faced, pardon me, with a national event, or the national slalom, which we run every August, and realize that you have to do a lot of changes to the car, changes that you're not used to running with, to be able to comply with national rules and enter that event. So we're getting a little
That's
closer
correct,
to that all the
yes.
time. We have a film clip now, I believe, with John Magill, as I mentioned, our national CASC president, and he mentions a little bit about the national slalom, and we'll have a few questions after that clip.
Solo events and rallying, and there are many of them around this region. I would hate to be accused of having a national president here on Motorsport Atlantic and not mentioning those two sport disciplines. I guess the biggest thing in solo this year, as normal, is the national slalom. That's it's quite an event that I sort of annually go to, and we've placed quite well in the national slalom in this region. Any special plans or anything coming up for that event this year?
It's been my pleasure to have been a participant in that event over the last few years, and to last year have been one of the people responsible for helping to organize it at the national level with our national solo director, Judd Buchanan. Yes, the solo committee nationally has done an awful lot of work with some very, very difficult regional disparities, and now has a series of national rules which are as close as we've ever been to having a uniform set across the country. This alone will help each individual runoff, because in the past across the country we have had people who compete regionally but do not compete on the national because their car is prepared to local rules rather than national rules. So I think that many more cars will qualify for the national event this year, which will please the organizers. The National Championship has also been able to expand its commercial possibilities by reason of the fact that it's now possible to announce winners within at least a day of the end of the event. Because this is really a collection of individual events which occur on a blueprinted circuit, that is an identical circuit in each of many locations across the country, we have had in the past some difficulty in declaring a winner. That has now been solved, and we are now in a position to be able to say to a sponsor, as we used to be able to say to a company like Castrol, well, here's something that is now viable, and we can now go back and look for some commercial support. And I understand the committee is having some very good discussions with some companies. Hopefully they will end up with a sponsor. It is an excellent grassroots program, and is one which is unique to the extent that individuals who are there in the parking lot watching a solo event are generally invited to participate
And actually take part.
and can actually take part, and because it is such a family type of sport, I've seen in many occasions people loan their helmets and give advice on tire pressures and this sort of thing to help someone right off the parking lot compete. So I personally get a lot of enjoyment out of it, and I don't see any reason why we won't have a tremendous growth in the popularity of that portion of our sport if we can get a little bit more publicity for it.
I guess the best recommendation at this point is if you're interested in solo events, to get in touch with your local sports car club, and those personnel will be glad to fill you in on that kind of thing. The sports car club being a 25.
The National Slalom now, this sounds like it may incur a lot of traveling, but it doesn't. What we have is a little unique, or we're able to do it because we run in parking lots and not specifically assigned courses. But we have a blueprinted course. George has a copy of it here. This was last year, 1983 National Blueprinted Course, and all of the CASC affiliated clubs apply to our national office, pay a permit fee, and ask to organize a national slalom. So it can be run in each city across Canada. What they do is they take this course, they have stewards, they triangulate it, set up with 100-foot measure tapes, and get it as exactly as possible. Of course, that means that they're all running the exact same type of course across Canada. The only thing could be possibly weather. Of course, we could have rain here and fine weather in Vancouver. So there is an alternate rain date, so that hopefully you're going to get ideal conditions. You're as ginned up as possible for it. You're running on exactly the same type of course. Then all the results get sent to a national office where they're compiled by computer. And this is where you can actually compete with people across Canada very cheaply. George has here a few of the different cars that you would find at a slalom across Canada. You find a few of those kinds in the Atlantic region. Of course, Vancouver being a warmer climate and having a longer season, and being the California of Canada, in essence, have lots of different kinds of cars. And we usually find someone we can compete against in those areas. Now, the National Slalom, as I mentioned, August this year. I believe it is August
I believe it's the middle of August anyway.
16th, I believe,
15th,
one of
16th.
those. And it is 6 runs. We usually run 3 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, or depending on what the weather looks like in Atlantic Canada can change very quickly.
Yes, you have a total of 6 runs anyway.
6 runs that you can compete in. Of course, your best time does count against competitors across Canada.
I'd also like to mention that we have a sprint at AMP June 23rd. Derek Luger will be the organizer for that event. And July 1st at New Minas, ASCC will be having a slalom, probably organized by Bruce Buntain, who lives in the valley.
The next regional event, I believe, is
The next
Sunday.
regional event is Sunday at Highfield Park.
Highfield Square.
Sorry,
Right.
Highfield Square, Moncton, on the main street. It's right across from the Eaton's parking lot, or is the Eaton's parking lot. Registration starts at about 11:30, and the first car will be off at 1 o'clock. Ron Sabin is the organizer of that event. If anyone wants any more information, they can call me at 423-7985. I'm going up on Sunday morning, and hope to see a lot of people from my club there.
Hopefully, that's right. These one of the 3 levels we maybe didn't mention. There is the club level, where you compete just against the people in the club, a regional level where Newfoundland, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia get in on the act with blueprinted courses and such, and of course then the national slalom. So, as we mentioned earlier, a very cheap and interesting way to get involved with motorsport. You've certainly done very well.
Yes, I enjoy it very much, and it's what I can afford. The entry fees are usually not very much, anywhere from $6 to $10 at the most. Have to buy a national license, which is about $20, but that's not too bad for entering a lot of events during the year. And
All of which...
I doubt if there's any other sporting events that you can participate in that's any cheaper.
Or competitive, that's
or
right.
competitive, yes.
Well, we wish you continued success.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming by tonight. Good night.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Motorsport Atlantic. My name is John Clark, and I learned this evening